Hello and welcome to the Take Charge podcast. The Chief Operating Officer of Li-Metal, Keshav Kochhar, joins me on this episode to talk through their anode, PVD and reprocessing technologies, whilst highlighting the importance of local supply chain due to recent tightening on graphite export from China. Coming from a diverse industry background, Keshav also shares his transition into battery technologies, whilst providing insight into building operational functions such as HR and supply chain, highlighting when to bring operational functions in-house and how to build a culture for success. Keshav, it's time to take charge. Keshav, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for having me on this podcast. Just very excited to be here, talk about Li-Metal and just general trends in the battery industry. So thank you very much again for having me here.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you for coming on. Really interested to hear about the technology and, of course, your background within operations, kind of how you found coming into the industry and into Li-Metal. And I'm sure you can give us some perspective in terms of what it's like coming into this space from a slightly different industry and succeeding like you have. So I guess let's start with that. So before getting into the bulk of things, talk us through your background and the industries you came from and how you came to join Li-Metal.
Sure, definitely. So to introduce myself, my name is Keshav Kochhar, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Li-Metal. I've been with the company for just over 2 years now, but I've actually been tracking it since its early stage inception, and trust me, it's been nothing short but exciting so far. A little bit more about myself. I'm actually a chemical engineer by background. I started my earlier stage in my careers in the chemical manufacturing industry, starting off more in a field engineer role and then transitioning more into like a process slash like a project engineer role. In that role, I led and managed many different projects with a focus on improving safety, lowering the production costs, and of course, being a process engineer, debottlenecking the process issues out there and helping the manufacturing plants achieve their goals. That experience, I believe, was really important for me. The reason I say that was because I gained that experience of managing and leading these multi-million dollar projects, which also helped me launch my first company, which is Lacero Solutions. It was actually my first foray into the clean tech space as well. So I launched Lacero Solutions in 2018 with a keen focus on addressing like a one key industry issue at that time, which was how to safely destroy and dispose of any recalled or defective airbags from different vehicles. So at that point, there was the largest recall in automobile history going on called the Takata inflator recall. And OEMs did not have a clear solution of what to do with these airbags and how to properly destroy and dispose of these airbags so they don't end up back in the gray market. That's where Lacero Solutions stepped in. We not only devised a process to safely track and destroy these airbags, but also came up with a process to successfully recycle and recover any recoverable materials. And I'm proud to say that I took Lacero Solutions to a cash flow positive company. And till date, I believe we have destroyed more than 500,000 airbags and recovered more than 1 million pounds of recoverable material, which includes copper, scrap metal, cardboard, and various different kinds of plastic. While I was running Lacero Solutions, I also got introduced to Mache, and that was, I believe, in late 2021. And late 2020. But as soon as I met Mache, I realized that Li-Metal was like developing some pretty innovative, neat technologies and had like a potential to be a major player in this next generation battery space. I was just excited about the potential and like the blank white space in front of Li-Metal and what their technologies actually could enable for these next generation batteries. And I felt the experience I had gained from Lacero Solutions and my previous roles, I could use that experience to take Li-Metal from where they were to take them to the next stage and eventually closer to commercialization.
And just to clarify, so before establishing Lacero, that was your first venture into the clean tech space. You were in process engineering and obviously your chemical engineering background. What was your background before establishing Lacero? What industry?
So it was all in the chemical manufacturing industry. So initially I worked in a hydrogen peroxide manufacturing facility, also a hydrogen production facility. So it was good, I believe, just getting that process engineering experience and managing these projects because that's like I said, that's what actually helped me start my first company, LSR Solutions, because the experience I gained of just managing these multi-million dollar projects and taking them all the way from like an idea or design stage to fully executing them,
Hmm.
I feel that experience was really key and helped me in starting my first business and making it a successful company and taking it cash flow positive.
Okay. And so is it fair to say that Lymetal was the first time in the battery space? So materials and
Correct.
in space.
Like I said, I although I had been tracking, I always had a keen interest in EVs, and I was always tracking the industry. But yes, experience-wise, Li-Metal was my first, I guess, entry into the battery market, you could say.
Very good. And yeah, what was your first impression then? It's not just of Lymetal, but also the industry as a whole.
That's a good question. I felt like personally, I believe there was a huge potential because just with the shift going on and the multiple OEMs committing to having a certain percentage of their fleet electric by either 2035 and 2040 and onwards, I potentially saw this as a big game changer in the industry. And what I saw was this big electrification transition, which I was expecting to go over 2020s into early 2030s as well. And what I was most excited to see was like how the future of electric transport is going to reshape and what the next 10 to 15 years are going to look like. And not just in the transportation space, but like also aviation and other applications where electrification can like substitute some of our more traditional fuel sources and like produce energy in a more like an environmentally friendly manner, more sustainable energy sources out there.
Mm, very good. So before getting too deep into your journey, give us an introduction of so you joined Lymetal 2 years ago,
Yeah,
about
just
2 years ago.
like about 2.5 years. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, talk me through the history of Lymetal and where you are today.
Sure, definitely. So I think before I talk about Li-metal, I think it's important just to introduce what next generation batteries are. And like I just mentioned before, like a lot of the OEMs, and actually not even OEMs, like some federal and state governments have made certain commitments of having their fleet or a certain percentage of their fleet electric by like 2035, 2040, and onwards. To achieve those goals, we actually need next generation batteries. The reason I say that is because the current generation of lithium ion batteries are reaching their performance limit. And if you want to encourage like a further adoption of EVs or just electrification in the transportation space, it's important to keep in mind of two important factors. Like if you're competing with these general combustion engines, whether they're gasoline or diesel cars, you want to make sure that A, you're competitive in terms of cost, and B, you're competitive in terms of performance so that you can actually encourage that adoption of EVs. This is what next generation batteries are doing. They're developing these higher energy density batteries, which are offering better performance, lowering cost, improving safety, and like in some cases, they're actually also decreasing the charge times as well. So that's where next generation batteries came in and made these promises. And we at Li-Metal, when it was founded in 2018, we wanted to address this emerging trend we were seeing in the electrification space, which was like this transition of your from your current lithium-ion batteries to these next generation batteries. And that's what our main goal at the company was to enable these lighter, cheaper, and better performance batteries to a further the adoption of EVs in the transportation space, but outside of the EVs also just push electrification further in the transportation space and promote it further. So at Li-Metal here, we are a vertically integrated technology platform here where we produce lithium metal and lithium metal anodes. So those are our two main core technologies, and our value chain starts at lithium carbonate and it ends at these high performance ultra thin anodes, which can be fitted into like next generation batteries and are ready to go. So, talking about our metal production technology, it's a patented carbonate to metal production process. So, it's a very scalable, modular, and environmentally friendly process, and it's very different from the industry standard process, and it actually offers a lot of distinct advantages. So, just to give you some, I guess, some background on this, traditionally lithium metal is produced from lithium chloride. So there are a few disadvantages with that process, and just to name a few, A, it's actually a really toxic process.
Mm.
And to put that in context, there's about 5 tons of chlorine generated for every ton of lithium metal produced through this process right now.
Yeah.
So, and the secondly, so it's not environmentally friendly, it's very toxic. And secondly, there's also like people don't realize, but lithium carbonate is actually a more widely available feedstock compared to lithium chloride. And a lot of these metal developers actually have one of this extra step where they go from lithium carbonate to lithium chloride and then lithium metal. So that's where our process gets its advantages. A, we use lithium carbonate instead of lithium chloride, so there's no chlorine production. So A, it's more environmentally friendly, but B, the capital costs and the operating costs are lower as well because you don't have to set up a chlorine treatment facility to treat all that chlorine you're generating. And then the second thing is we go straight from lithium carbonate to lithium metal. So we skip that step of converting lithium chloride to lithium carbonate and then going lithium metal, in turns further lowering the operating cost for this plant as well. And in May of this year, we successfully demonstrated actually producing lithium metal directly from our lithium metal production process here at our pilot metal production facility. And I think it also gives us a significant advantage for our anode business because it helps us like secure this key reliable feedstock, which is lithium metal, which is needed to produce our lithium metal anodes. And now moving on to the anode production technology, what we use is a roll-to-roll PVD technology, or PVD, which stands for physical vapor deposition. So again, it's a very scalable process, it's a very modular, and it's a very low cost production process. To give you a little bit of a background about what PVD is like, so PVD actually has been used for a variety of applications for a few generations now. And what they do is like, I guess one of the most common examples I can give is like a bag of chips. So like whenever you open a bag of chips, you see that shiny metal layer inside the bag of chips. That's actually deposited onto that bag of chips through PVD, that shiny metal layer you're seeing out there. So that's something we wanted to use. It was a low cost production method. It's a proven technology. And we were like, hey, if this works for other applications, why can't it work for making our anodes? And that's where our business started out for on the anode business front, is we are using this PVD technology to vaporize the lithium and deposit it onto various substrates and then build these anode materials for our customers. There are significant advantages with the process. One approach we apply on the PVD, one thing you need to know is a PVD is more of a top-up approach than a bottom-down. So what I mean by that is your industry standard process uses like extrusion and rolling, and how that works is it start with a thick lithium foil and then they keep extruding and rolling it to get it down to those ultra thin thicknesses you want. But in our case with the PVD process, you are starting off with just a substrate and then you're depositing lithium onto it. So you're like, whether it's 10 micron, 20 micron thicknesses you need, it's easier to do it because you're going from 0 to 20 versus going from, for example, from 200 or 250 microns to 20. So you get like A, it's less energy intensive, and B, it's a lower operating cost as well. So you can actually meet the price targets your battery manufacturers are looking for the anode material. The other advantages I would say with the process is like it's very scalable and flexible as well. Like we have the ability to work with many different substrates, whether it's copper, aluminum, polymer, just to name a few. And it also offers us like improves the safety of the battery by minimizing the excess lithium in it. So till date, like these are the two main technologies we have developed. We have two facilities, one here in Markham, Ontario, which is our head R&D facility, and our pilot metal production facility is actually housed here as well. And then we have our pilot anode production facility in Rochester, New York. And being a technical innovator, we've actually also developed a very strong IP portfolio where I believe we've filed more than 40 patents to date, and we continue to do so just to strengthen our IP portfolio and protect our technologies, processes, and sub-processes we're developing. And last but not least, on the commercial front, we're actually working with 27 OEMs and battery developers, out of which 15 are next generation battery developers and are actively sampling our product. We continue to build these strategic relationships with our customers and keep feeding our anode to the market. And eventually our goal is to help these next generation battery technologies get closer to commercialization and start seeing them in EVs and different applications.
Very good. And these, so interesting you have these different elements of the business. Obviously the anodes, the PVD technology, the reprocessing as well. Was all of this in place before you joined? Because it sounds like your previous business, obviously that kind of reprocessing element, Was that already in place, or was that something that you had a hand in starting up?
That's a very good question. So when I joined the company, our primary focus was developing the lithium metal production technology because one of our main goals was to enable a local supply chain of this key battery material locally within North America, then eventually Europe as well. But lithium anode production was something we were just starting to look into when I joined the company. We realized that like the current industry method of producing these lithium metal anodes was not the most efficient process, and we believed that just having our own lithium metal production technology really gave an advantage to like an internal competitive advantage to us because we could now go out and we already had the key feedstock secured, and there were all these different technology platforms we could evaluate. So based on customer feedback with the way the industry trends were going, we decided that, hey, like lithium metal is a good market to be in, but lithium metal anodes is something which is a little bit more specialized and a little bit more niche. And it felt at that time, and now we feel the same too, is the right road to be on. So I believe both of these two technologies eventually tie in together and gives us that capability to not only produce lithium metal for our customers, but also go one step further and produce these high performance lithium metal anodes, which can be fitted into these next generation batteries.
Very good. And we work with many companies who are in the kind of anode space, but kind of talk us through your kind of lithium metal anode technology and how they compare to others in the market.
That's a good question. So I think before I talk about next generation batteries, we should talk about our current lithium ion batteries. So the current lithium ion batteries use graphite as one of the most common type of anodes used in the current lithium ion batteries. And what next generation batteries are doing is they're all about modifying the electrolyte chemistry to like substitute these graphite anode with a better energy material, which will allow you to improve the energy density and in turn reduce the weight and volume of the battery and allow you to increase performance and then obviously lower cost as well. So what next generation battery developers are doing is they're all developing these different electrolyte chemistries which can work with the higher energy materials, but all roads eventually will lead down to these ultra thin high performance lithium metal anodes. If you ask me like why am I saying that, the reason being there is out of all the battery materials out there, lithium metal has the highest specific capacity. And just to put that into context, like lithium metal has almost 10 times the specific capacity of a traditional graphite anode used in our current lithium ion batteries. So just like just having lithium metal will really allow you to have these high energy density batteries by substituting those graphite anodes with these lithium metal anodes. And to evidence of that, like what I'm saying, like many battery market reports have actually like published forecasts and reports that where they're forecasting the lithium metal anode market to be in excess of $40 billion by 2035. So that's a pretty big market like they're forecasting out there. And just in our own experience and working with these battery developers, what we have seen is in the last 8 to 12 months, these battery developers have made significant breakthroughs and they have managed to develop these liquid electrolytes which are compatible with lithium metal. What that means is that initially where we were seeing like forecasting late 2020s or by 2030 for these lithium metal anodes to be adopted into EVs, like with the recent breakthroughs and everything, we can see that being pulled as early as 2026 or 2027.
Wow.
So some recent breakthroughs have definitely been made, which has kind of pulled the market a little bit ahead. And that's where we come in as we want to keep innovating and scaling up our anode production technology that we can like address this growing demand for these lithium metal anodes.
And interesting, I had no idea it'd been brought forward that soon, 2026, 2027. What do you see as the biggest barrier right now? Is safety one of those? Because I know that's sometimes well documented when it comes to lithium metal.
No, I think that's a very good question. So safety is one of the things next generation batteries are trying to address and make the batteries safer. So like by minimizing, like especially with our technology, by minimizing the excess lithium, you are already making the battery safer because you're only putting the amount of lithium you actually need and you don't have that excess lithium. But talking about the barriers, I think the main barrier I would see is establishing this local supply chain and establishing the supply chain for the next generation battery space. Because hey, it's a new technology. They're like the metals are already out there, but the demand for these metals is going to grow exponentially. Like what we have right now versus what is expected in 2030 is more than 10x. So
Mm.
it's actually building out that capability, and that supply chain is going to be your main challenge. And that's where we at Lime Metal are coming in and trying to address some of those challenges and start producing those like critical battery materials locally within Canada and North America.
Mm. I was interested. I was reading about China's recent tightening on graphite exports.
Yeah.
So timely time to speak about it. So I guess you see opportunity in that in terms of what you guys are doing.
That's a good question because definitely it came on our radar as well. Everyone in the battery industry, it kind of sent some ripples
Mm.
down when we read the news that China was tightening their exports on graphite. But that's something we always were. I guess we were always aware of, or we always had as a local goal, like a internal goal as well, was to like support this development of a sustainable battery supply chain within North America. And it's not just graphite, like to put into context, like let's just take lithium metal, for example. Right now in the world, there's about 3,000 tons of battery grade lithium metal production capacity in the world, and out of which more than 90% of it is actually concentrated in China. So with what they have done with graphite there and with the way the geopolitical situation is, there is a risk that they could like start like tightening the exports of other critical like battery materials as well. And that's not just the issue. The other issue is, like I had mentioned before, like you have this step of converting like lithium carbonate to lithium chloride before you can make lithium metal. Right now, there's very limited capacity in the world to do that. And to get new capacity online, A, it's a very significant investment, and B, it can take anywhere between 4 to 5 years from like design stage to the time it's like fully installed and commissioned.
Mm.
So that's where we feel our carbonate to metal technology will really help because A, carbonate is a much widely available feedstock and it's a much more environmentally friendly process. So you can actually build those facilities in North America and start addressing these increase in demands. Because, like I said, right now it's 3,000 tons, but some market reports are forecasting the demand to be greater than 35,000 tons by 2030 and onwards. So there is a huge ramp up in like lithium metal production capacity, which is needed, and in turn lithium metal anodes as well. But one thing I would say is on the anode front, like regardless of what the macro developments are or the geopolitical situations are, we believe eventually all these roads are going to lead down to these high performance lithium metal anodes because that's where the industry is kind of trending towards. And that's what you kind of need to do to make sure you're competitive in terms of performance and cost and like encourage that broader adoption of EVs and
Mm.
electrification in the transportation space.
Wow. I 90%. I had no idea it was that much in
Ye-
China. I mean, it's a common conversation around how far behind North America is in terms of catching up with China and South Korea. And there's a lot of conversation around um, government investment in North America and establishing manufacturing facilities. And we have many clients in the market who are maybe kind of continuing their manufacturing in China but establishing in the US as well, or maybe solely allocating all of it in the US. But there comes the issue of supply chain,
Exactly.
as you mentioned. So, you know, it sounds like there's some interesting prospects there for you, not just in terms of the lithium anode itself, but then the materials and the reprocessing. So it sounds like you've had a busy couple of years, but there's some even busier years ahead for you.
Yes, it's been busy and we expect it to get busier just based on the interest we're getting on the technologies we have developed and what our customers are aiming to do and what their projections are. Like we expect the next 3 to 5 years to be like a really exciting time for us.
Mm.
And like I believe US and Canada are now realizing that and are trying to catch up. Like and as you might have seen in the news as well, like both Canada and like for example in the US, the Inflation Reduction Act and the DOE, the grants and the loan programs they are launching, they are focused on pushing because they are also realizing like, hey, electrification is the future, and they don't want to like fall behind in that race, and they want to make sure that the government is providing as much incentives and actually promoting the build out of these, like building out the capacity to produce these critical battery materials and also like create a local sustainable supply chain for them.
Very good. Um, Talking about your busy 2 years, it sounds like there's been some milestones, some big successes that have happened. Do you think coming from a slightly different market has helped you, or hindered you? I guess you'd probably say help, but kind of how would you assess maybe coming from a different industry into this now, and how that's maybe supported you in your journey so far?
So I guess just talking about the milestones, like the team has done some really great work since the inception of the company. And if I start thinking, oh boy, like there are a lot of milestones the company has achieved, like just looking at 2023, for example, and looking at the metal production technology, we got our first patent granted earlier in the summer this year for producing lithium metal directly from lithium carbonate, which further validated our technology, but also strengthened our IP portfolio. Like I said before, it's very important for us to protect our technologies, processes, and sub-processes we're developing out here. And the other thing was we likely became the only company in the world to successfully demonstrate making lithium metal directly from lithium carbonate at our pilot production facility here in Markham. We achieved that feat in late April, early May this year, and I believe it wasn't just a big milestone for our company, it was just a very big breakthrough in the scientific or metallurgical world just to show that it is possible to produce lithium metal directly from lithium carbonate and avoid these toxic or high cost steps which can be avoided with our process. And in recognition of that, we actually won about $1.4 million in grant funding from through different grant programs from the government of Ontario, which was aimed at further pushing pushing our metal production technology and getting us closer to commercialization. And to top it all off, we were actually just recognized earlier in this year by the Time Group as in their best inventions list for 2023, which was particularly for our metal production process. And these were just the milestones we hit on the metal side. On the anode side, I would say the main milestones we hit was our customer base really expanded. We really added more battery customers who are now actively sampling our anode material. We really significantly increased our capacity and capability of the different types of anodes we can produce out of our pilot production facility in Rochester, New York. And we actually secured our first commercial contract for anode material this year as well. So commercially, it was a big win too. And last but not least, I think earlier this fall, we signed an exclusive partnership with Mustang Vacuum Systems to build and deliver these high performance PVD machines and anodes to our customers. One thing to realize with PVD technology is the equipment plays a big role in the productivity of that technology. So that's why it was really important for us to find the right partner to build these PVD machines for ourselves and our customers as well, so that we could produce the best possible anodes at the lowest possible cost possible. And that's where Mustang Vacuum Systems came in. They're a seasoned PVD player in the industry. They've been around for years and have built and delivered these PVD machines for a variety of different applications. So for us, it felt like it was a very fruitful partnership as we got our product or process development experience with us, and they got that machine development, PVD machine building experience with them. So it was like a match made in heaven, you could say. But and as a part of that partnership, we are actually building our first commercial scale anode production machine, which we expect to have it installed and commissioned by the second half of 2024. So we're looking forward to that. And as a part of this partnership, like Mustang Vacuum Systems has actually become a shareholder at Lymetal as well. So it's further strengthening our collaboration and partnership as well. And we're believing through this partnership, we can further push our anode technologies to the next stage and then enable these next generation batteries to start getting to market as soon as possible.
Amazing.
But and then I guess answering the second part of your question, coming from a diverse background, it kind of helped, I would say, especially dealing with the OEMs, because I had gone through that process with the OEMs at Lucero of getting a process qualified with them and actually getting yourself qualified with a vendor process too. With these OEMs, they have like a pretty rigorous process, and there are a lot of steps you need to go through before you actually get set up as a vendor with them. So just having that experience and knowing what is expected through these different qualification stages and planning ahead, I believe was really helpful at Live Metal and just for us to keeping ahead of every the rest of the competitors and keep pushing forward.
It's fascinating to hear because we speak to people on the show who are maybe from a kind of a technical background, maybe a CTO, they come from research and development or engineering in the battery space. But of course, yourself as the COO, coming from an operational perspective, you have different responsibilities, different mission. Well, still the same mission, but you kind of wear different hats. So it's good to hear. And just based on that, I remember when we last spoke, we talked about how you've grown the team. I think 5 times since you joined the company. So talk me through that growth since you've joined.
Yeah, it's definitely been an exciting journey so far. Like where we were 2 years ago and where we are now, honestly, it's just been a privilege to be a part of that journey and then watch the team grow, and not just the team, just watch the company grow as well, and more excited of what's in space for us in the future. But like talking about the growth specifically at the company, when I joined the company, it was still a relatively smaller team as we were proving out the processes more on bench scale. But as soon as we started getting some breakthroughs on our bench scale testing, just based on my experience, I immediately realized that we would need to expand the team, add more business functions, and add more resources to make sure we continue on the growth trajectory we're headed towards and we don't start slipping off. One of the first things I did was lock myself in with the CEO of the room, and we were like, okay, let's go through a fine tooth and comb through our business plan and make sure that the learnings we have captured from these bench scale testing still apply, and if any changes need to be made. So we went through the whole business plan. It was very clear what our long-term goals and strategy and mission was, and what short-term goals and objectives we needed to meet in order to fulfill those long-term goals and objectives we had out there. So with the CEO and the rest of the management team, I sat down and we pretty much formulated, like went through the business plan, but also came up for each milestones, like what was the expected funds needed, what size of the team would be needed, what resources would be needed. So it was like very well laid out, like what exactly we needed to do over the next 2 to 3 years to start hitting our long-term goals and objectives. And once that was finalized, we did pretty much 2 things in parallel. One was raising the funds. So we went out to the market. We had a good idea of what funds we needed to progress these technologies to the next stage. So in 2021, we completed a raise. I assisted in taking the company public. So we actually successfully listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange in November of 2021. And that helped us secure the funding we needed to keep pushing these technologies forward. And in parallel, I was also working with the area leads and team managers or team leads just to address like it to make sure it was clear that what we were hoping to do or achieve in the short term and how it was translating to our long-term goals and milestones. And the other thing we looked at is was like, okay, these are the goals we have hit so far. This is the expertise we had in the team so far. What resources and expertise did we need to hit the following milestone and the milestone after that? So it was a lot in back and forth with the team members to kind of understand like where we were, what needed to be done, and how do we get to that next stage. So in everyone's head, it was really clear like what everyone's role was and what they needed to do to help us achieve those milestones. So that's how I came up with our overall hiring strategy. And that's where my experience coming outside of the industry from Lucero actually helped because I went through a similar process when the technology was proven out and we were getting closer to commercialization. It was how to have a smooth expansion while keeping within the company budget and making sure that you're hiring the right roles, you're adding the right resources, and adding the right business functions at the right time. So those were all the important factors which came in. But one piece of advice I always give my fellow coworkers and everyone is it's always very, very important. I can't stress how important it is to have a strong business plan. You want to keep going back to your business plan and you want to make sure that like what you have in plan A, you're on track, you're not slipping away, and you want to keep continuing reviewing your expenses as well. Like when you're not a cash flow positive company, you want to make sure that you're using the investors' money the right way and you're really pushing the technologies forward and you aren't slipping away. So you want to make sure you're keeping in line with your forecast, you're continuously reviewing the projects with the team members and making sure everyone understands where we are and where we need to go. And in my personal experience, and many people will vouch to that, it's much easier to plan and execute on that plan versus being in that situation and then trying to come up with like a makeshift solution just to get through. Because in most cases, it actually ends up taking more time. It ends up costing you more, and there's a high chance that if you haven't planned it, you might skip a critical step, and then later on it'll come back to you, and you'll be like, oh, if I had planned this better, I would have known this step, and the company wouldn't be at this stage. So I believe, yeah, just those having those factors and having that business sense, like, and having that clarity on your head, like what my mission and goals are and what I need to do, and having those processes set in place so that you can track everything and make sure you're headed in the right direction is really important.
So which operational functions have you added, and in what order did you add those functions?
That's a good question. So I might sound like a broken record here, but it all goes back to your business plan, like what functions, like depending on what stage your company is in, there are specific business functions you need to support the business, and other business functions are maybe lower of a priority or can be added later. And that was the same in our case, like having a strong business plan, it was very clear at what stage what needed to be hired. So in our case, like I think one thing to realize is it's not even like hiring in-house, but it's also like having consultants or contractors. Because one thing you have to realize is like if you have like certain in-house priorities and it's a smaller and nimble team and they already have their priorities or technology, like things they're working on, you don't want to distract them on servicing other functions. And maybe you are at a below a certain scale of operations that it's actually more economical to actually contract this out or have consultants or experts support you on this so your internal team can actually focus on your core business and the core technologies you're developing. So in our case, it was the same thing as well. Being a technical innovator, obviously the key roles we looked at first was to make sure all the key technical roles were fulfilled and we had the expertise to keep pushing the technologies forward because again, that was our number one priority. And secondly, like when I joined, one of my personal goals was to build an HR function right away. And by HR, I don't mean like, hey, employees are getting paid on time and everyone's getting their money on time. Yes, that's important too. But it was more about building this employee culture. Because one thing I had realized from my experience at Lacero as well was when you're a relatively nimble company and everyone is really contributing towards the technology and has significant contributions to what you're doing. And you want to make sure that your team members feel valued and they feel like as the company is growing, they're personally and professionally growing themselves as well, and they are being valued by the team, valued by the company. So that's why I wanted to establish this HR function was to just build that culture and make sure that hey, yes, we're not only like hiring this talent, but we are also retaining the key talent we need to keep pushing these technologies forward because it can actually set you back if you lose your key people. So you want to make sure that you're retaining your key people, you're retaining your key team members, and you're working with them to keep pushing the technologies forward and making sure that they are also growing with the company and they're feeling valued, that their contributions are valued by the company. So that was one really personal important function for me, and that's something I pride myself upon is like just our Limetal's ability not only to attract this top talent, whether it's R&D engineers, battery scientists, technicians, just other roles, but the thing is like to actually retain these roles and keep our team members excited and like just watching them being so involved in the process and being excited because they themselves realize the potential the company holds and the key areas we can unlock in the future which are not there right now. So HR was the first one, going back to it, and then other functions, like I said, it depends on what stage of the company you're in. Like supply chain was something we started building out right after the HR function was built out, because initially, like I said, it was contracted out because it was more economical. But at that time, it wasn't even an economical question. It was like, okay, we're starting to get more traction from customers. We expect these demands to go up. Yes, right now it's more economical to have a logistics partner and have them deliver, but lithium being a dangerous good, it's not super easy to transport it across the border or transport it to different locations. There are a lot of restrictions and regulations associated with just like transporting lithium metal. So I wanted to make sure that we start building that expertise before we get put in a bind, and I wanted to make sure that we had that supply chain expertise. So we started like hiring and building our own internal supply chain team. We got some industry experts as consultants so we could learn from them and start building that function locally within the business because you need your internal supply chain business to support your growth. Yes, it's good, like we can make those anodes, but it's also important how are you going to deliver those anodes? How are you going to make sure they don't degrade while they're being transported? How are you going to make sure everything's protected safety wise? So it was important to build those functions as well. So, like I said before as well, like having that business plan really helped because it was easier to look ahead. I could keep going back at the milestones. I had done a similar process at Lucero. So I like you kind of had an idea which functions need to be added when and which functions can be outsourced versus having them in-house.
Very good. And what was the headcount when you introduced HR into the company?
So when the headcount when I introduced HR was, I believe we were about 4 or 5 people, and now we are close to about 30 plus team members. So
Wow,
like you said, it's really grown over the last few years.
very good. Yeah, I guess that's sometimes a an argument or a decision to be made. When do you introduce your HR function to begin with? Because, do you wait
Mhm.
until you have 10, 15, 20 people when HR issues start to happen? And the same with the supply chain appointment. you know it's getting that function, that expertise in place
Mhm.
before you really need it. So that's a fascinating way that you've built the team out. And what's the head count of the company right now?
It's about 30 plus team members right now, including both our facilities in Rochester and here in Markham.
Very good. Very good. And in terms of these operational positions,
Mhm.
is there a balance of people in and out the industry? Would you advise hiring in the battery industry for any particular functions, or does it not really matter too much?
That's a good question. So HR is HR. It doesn't matter whether you're running a battery company or you have an IT company or what kind of company you're running. HR functions are there. Like one of the main goals as an HR function is to build that employee culture. Like you also asked, like when is the right time to introduce? I think it should be introduced at a very early stage because once you build that culture at an early stage, it'll resonate through the company as you keep expanding.
Mm.
It's hard to introduce something new when you become big, but it's easy to introduce something new when you're small and then make sure that as the team is growing, as the company is growing, those values are getting propagated through all functions of the business. And versus hiring outside versus hiring inside the industry, I think when it comes to it's very role specific because some roles obviously require you to have those technical expertise or have those niche expertise which are particularly applicable for the battery industry. So supply chain, for an example. Like in the supply chain role, you're a new company, you want to get maybe someone experienced who has this experience of dealing with these dangerous goods, specifically lithium metal, lithium metal anode. So it doesn't have to be the battery industry, but as long as they have that experience of dealing with those dangerous goods and know how to get it from point A to point B and what paperwork is required and what the regulations are, that's good enough. Yes, it's a plus of being in the battery industry because now you have that specific expertise, but it's not a make or break. And like I said, this is a new supply chain we're developing. Next generation batteries are new technologies. What we are developing is a new technology. So it's not like a lot of expertise already exists out there. In some cases, you're the ones actually building that expertise and educating the rest of the market on how to do that. So that really dictates it too. And another thing to keep in mind is the timing of the hiring. Like when or like who do you need to hire? You need to know that long before you actually want to fulfill that role or bring that talent on board. Like I always like joke with my coworkers around here that the right time to hire was yesterday,
Mm.
but we always like recognize that too. That hey, it's important to like based on the role and the location, you need to plan when you need to like have a plan when you want to start hiring for that role. And why I say that is like a location is very important. Like we're close to Toronto, so there's a bigger talent pool available to have people like pick from or choose from to join the company. But whereas if you were in a much smaller town and that expertise does not exist in that town, it would take you longer to fulfill that role. And same goes on the type of the role as well. Like I said, if it's a more generic general role and it's a bigger talent pool available, you can start the hiring process a little bit later. But if it's a more like a specific role which requires you to have like a specific skill set or specific expertise, and there aren't a lot of talent pool to available to choose from, then you have to start hiring for that role well in advance. So that's the, I guess, principles we have employed here as well. Because another thing people don't realize is like, hey, hiring is a very, I would say, like commitment intensive process, both in terms of time and cost. It's not cheap. It takes a fair bit of time commitment to find the right team members. And that's what we recognize at Lime Metal too, that even though we have grown to 30 people, we still maintain a minimal operational footprint because we want to make sure we are only hiring for the roles we actually need to keep progressing these technologies and building those. Because, like I mentioned before, you can start building some specific functions once you get to a certain stage. You don't need to build those functions internally till you cross a certain scale of operations. And that's what we've done here as well. Like we have a very minimal operational footprint, and we really expect the team to grow once we start building our commercial plans.
Very good. Very good. It's yeah, an interesting concept, kind of bringing culture into the business, and then when to make appointments. A question that I often get asked is, and we actually covered this in my last conversation on the show, was in the battery technology space, in kind of highly innovative industries, will company culture ever surpass technology and IP when it comes to talent attraction? In your opinion, in kind of working in industries in the past, do you think the battery industry will ever get to that point where culture is more important, or will you always see kind of technology and IP as the biggest pull for talent?
So it honestly, culture, I believe, is most important because let's say even if I'm looking for a new role or if you're looking for a new job, what are the first few things you see in the company? A, do I like the role? Like, is it something I want to do? B is what is it like working in that company? Yes, like compensation and all is important, and the technologies they're working on are super cool. But I am going to be interacting with XYZ people on a daily basis. How is it like working with these people? How is the employee culture? Is there opportunity for my personal growth in the industry? Like, yes, it's good to watch the company grow, but at the same time, I want myself to grow and open up more career opportunities for me in the future so that I can keep moving ahead as the company is moving. So in short, I feel like yes, we will get there. Right now, technology and IP is important, like because like with any early stage or this, I guess you can say revolution you're seeing or this transition you're seeing from lithium-ion batteries to next generation batteries. To make that possible right now, it's very important to have those technologies developed and then have a strong IP portfolio. But once these companies start getting closer to commercialization and start producing commercial products and they really need to expand their teams, that's where they can take a step back saying like, yes, we have to keep continuously improving our technologies, but we also want to make sure that we are attracting the right talent, we are retaining the right talent, and which we need to keep pushing the company forward because you don't want to lose your key people at like a critical stage of growth where you're at. You want to make sure like even once you're commercialized, there's always opportunity for improvement. In our case too, yes, we're developing these Gen 1 anodes, but soon you will start moving towards these Generation 2 anodes. And that's how you be competitive in the business. It's not like, hey, I've made a product, I'm good, I just sit back. You have to keep continuously improving. You have to keep going back to the drawing board and seeing how can I make sure that I am differentiating myself from the competitors and keep pushing our technologies forward.
It's a fascinating topic, and I think it's a good thing to highlight for battery professionals. Not to necessarily get hung up on the technology and the IP and is this kind of groundbreaking technology, because if an organization has that amazing IP, but the R&D team does their own thing, they don't really communicate with manufacturing, and then they're obviously not communicating with supply chain, and everyone's kind of working towards different goals and missions. And as we see, the biggest challenge is making the technology scalable, from a manufacturability point of view, and then also commercially available. And the technology could be amazing, but to reach those really important points, you're not going to get that with different teams working towards different things and non-inclusive culture. So the culture needs to be there to allow innovation to happen, shared ideas and improvements and difference of opinions. So no, I think it's an interesting point to anyone who's interviewing in the battery space to look at the culture and also look at the strategy. Is it consistent? Is it, has there been a lot of thought put into it, as you say, about the planning of, the growth of the team and the scaling of the team when the functions are in place, rather than just focusing on technology and IP?
No, I think that's a very important point. Like you brought up communication before between different departments, and that's something I have, and I guess as the management team, have instituted here as well. Is we actually have like a weekly hands on deck meeting where different departments give an update on what they were up to last week, if they hit any milestones, if they encountered any issues, so that everyone is aware like what the different departments are working towards. And that's when we come in at the end and kind of tie it all together, saying, yes, this R&D team is developing this. This is how it's going to help manufacturing. This is what supply chain has to do once manufacturing starts doing that. So everyone's in the loop, because one thing you want to make sure is, like I said, it's a fairly nimble team. Everyone is contributing towards different aspects of the growth or different business functions of the company. And one thing I always tell like all our team members as well is like, hey, when you're working for a startup, when you're working for like this technology innovator companies, you want to be comfortable, you want to be flexible, and be okay being outside your comfort zone. Like you are expected to wear multiple hats in this role, because again, you're not in a or like I would say like a legacy company, or which have already have like 10,000, 20,000, or 1,000 plus employees. Every team member is important. Every team member knows that, hey, I will support other functions. Like sometimes we have our chain team members helping us back at the back, just like if we are short on operators, just to be like, hey, can you come and help us at the back and help us this? So that flexibility is very important. Like you want to be, it's important for the company, but it's important for your personal growth, because it pushes you to step outside your comfort zone and do things which are not in your traditional role, and be like, hey, oh, I did not know that, but I enjoy this more than what I enjoy traditionally, or maybe I have more of an aptitude for this task versus what I'm doing right now. So working for a startup or a technology innovator gives you that flexibility to actually work. Obviously, the main role is working in your main hat, but also allow you to wear different hats and support other departments and help the company push forward.
Mm. Good point. Yeah, stepping outside of your comfort zone and stepping into different departments. Again, in one of my previous conversations, the CEO mentioned having someone in R&D having a manufacturing target. So, they're targeted in terms of their bonuses, that manufacturing hits certain milestones and vice versa. Manufacturing have certain R&D targets as well, to be able to achieve this amount of density, and then obviously be able to scale it. So it just means that they have to work together in conjunction, exactly. And they're not just kind of working on their own stuff. So no, it's good. It's a
No,
good
for
point.
sure. You don't want it to become a science project. You want to make
No.
sure that the company is moving forward. And no, I agree with that. Like we have a very similar, I guess, bonus structure here as well. Like there are individual goals everyone has to hit, but then there are company goals, and they realize like how what they're doing is contributing to that company goal. So everyone is really incentivized not just to work on like in a silo and just work in like one direction and not look outside of that.
Mm.
They actually have a broad 360 view, and they know like what they're working on, how it's contributing to the company's long-term goals and milestones. Because you want it to be very clear. You want every employee to understand like, hey, what you're doing is important. This is how it's contributing to our long-term business and goals. This is how it's helping us meet our short-term goals and milestones. And this is how everything ties up together. So that way they realize like, hey, my work is not only benefiting my department, it's benefiting these XYZ other departments as well.
Great. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Just a couple of questions to finish off.
Sure.
So what are you most excited about in terms of looking ahead with Light Metal? And then also, what do you see as your biggest challenges ahead as well?
That's a good question. So I think most excited about, I would say, short term is just the setting up of our first commercial anode production machine, which we expect to bring online by mid of 2024. So just partnering with Mustang Vacuum Systems and like getting that machine online will really enhance our capability to service our customers and further push the development of these anode technologies and help it get closer to commercialization. Long term, I am more excited about like just supporting this like a build out of this like sustainable, domestic, reliable supply chain for these critical battery materials and doing our part of like producing lithium metal and in turn these lithium metal anodes to service the industry locally and having that optionality available so that we're not reliable on just one or two main countries, and that way you have that capability to do it in-house or do it locally if we need to. And we will continue to keep building our relationships with our customers as well as strategic partners, because in the end we all have the same goal, is to push these adoption of next generation batteries into EVs and other modes of transportation as well, to further electrify the industry and further help like OEMs in countries and like different countries and OEMs achieve their carbon neutrality targets and their like environmentally friendly targets they have, and get that, not only get them there but get them in a safe and economic way, so it's a sustainable process, because you have to make sure that like it's good, like yeah, it's environmentally friendly, but at the same time you want to make sure the process economics work out, because that's the only way you can encourage the broader public to adopt these EVs and adopt this electrification in the transportation space. Talking about the challenge, like I mentioned before, is like building out this supply chain, yes, is not going to be easy.
Mm.
The forecasted demand we are seeing for lithium metal, like I said, there's significant increase in capacity we need to do, and we want to make sure we don't lose the race to other countries, and we're developing these key technologies, because electric transport is the future of transportation. Like whether it's EVs or air taxis or the autonomous vehicles and all, they all are eventually going to use these next generation batteries. So you want to make sure that you're servicing these industries and you have that supply chain capability set up to service the industry and also address the exponential growth you're going to see in the next few years.
Very good. And there's a closing tradition. How do you think the battery world, the battery industry will look in 10 years? And let's keep it to North America as well. How do you think the battery industry in North America will look in 10 years?
Huh, that's a good question. So I think we personally, like I said at Lime Metal, are just excited like through these next generation batteries, like what the future of electric transportation would hold. Like I said, like it's going to enable a lot of different applications, like I mentioned before, these autonomous vehicles, your air taxis, and eventually electric flights as well. But what we see in the future is these high energy density batteries using ultra thin lithium metal anodes in them to really push the technologies forward and get the most optimal like I guess results in terms of performance and cost. Like right now, I guess just to get a little bit more technical, right now you see batteries giving you an energy density of about 250 to 280 watt hours per kilogram, and these next generation batteries are going to give you anywhere between 350 to 400 watt hours per kilogram. What that means is that you would start seeing EVs which have a range of maybe 1,000 kilometers or more, which you aren't seeing right now, and a broader adoption of just electrification in the transportation space. Like we personally are excited, like ourselves, like out of all these competing next generation battery technologies, which one will be the leader? But one thing we are doing our part in this is just to make sure whichever battery chemistry is the leader, we have the ability to support them and supply them with the critical battery materials they need to keep pushing the technology forward and further like pushing this mass adoption of EVs and electrification in the transportation space.
Hmm. Well, let's hope that is the future, and
Yeah.
obviously you're contributing to that. So, my background before moving into batteries was mining, and when I was getting into mining, I was yeah, shocked at the side effects in terms of extracting lithium.
Mhm.
So I'm fascinated by your solution. We obviously need to look at the supply chain issues and things like that. There's clear solutions that you guys provide. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on board, and wish you the very best of luck for the near future.
Oh, thank you very much again, Jamie, for having me, and it was a pleasure talking to you and just talking about lime metal and just the general industry trends. Thanks again.
Great, nice one.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Keshav.
Okay, bye.